in. So as I call your name, if you could just confirm that the name on the screen is correct and let me know who you're representing here today, whether you're the applicant, owner, or neighboring property owner or someone else. So we'll start with Janet Keller. Keller, if you could unmute, if you'd like to participate.
Yes, I'm unmuted, and I live at 553 Evanswood.
Okay, great. Welcome. And I see we have Matt Lashide from the City Planning Department. Welcome, Matt. Matt, I couldn't hear you that well on that. Just FYI. There you go. That's what it.
I think I figured it out.
Got it. All right. And then we also have Robert Weston.
Yep. Robert Weston, the applicant.
Okay.
Apologies if I've got some background noise. Hopefully it's not too bad.
I can hear you okay, but there's some background noise. Mr. Weston, are you expecting anyone else on the applicant owner side to be joining us here today?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I need to read through our hearing script. This just covers the procedure for the hearing, and then we can begin. So this is the October 2nd, 2024 session of the Zoning Hearing Examiner docket. Again, my name is David Sturkey. I'll be presiding over the case. Case before us today is case number ZH20240119. That's 545 Evanswood Place. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any other parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any other party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing, unless someone has submitted testimony or evidence in the form of writing prior to this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant, the applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. For our purposes here today, that will be Mr. Weston. That's an opportunity for Mr. Weston to tell us about any background on the case that he believes is important. Of course, what the proposed project is, the relief that is required to complete that project, and why he believes that relief is appropriate. We'll then move to the public. If Ms. Keller would like to provide any testimony, she'll have that opportunity at that point. Or if anyone else from the public joins us, they'll have an opportunity to present after the applicant has presented its case. I'll move over to Matt Lashide from the Planning Department to provide any testimony in addition to his staff report. And in the event that any party testifies or offers argument in opposition to this application, the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to that testimony that was offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make any closing statements. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. In the event of any technical difficulties, I'll do my best to troubleshoot those issues on the fly, but to the extent there's some defect that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with this hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay. Last thing I need to do is just swear in all of our witnesses. So again, if you intend on providing any testimony here today, making any comments, really doing anything other than just strictly observing, then the zoning code requires that I swear you in. So if that's you, if you could take yourself off of mute now, I'll need everyone to raise their right hand and to answer out loud. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And just to confirm, Ms. Keller, you're just observing today. You're not going to be providing any testimony.
I provided a written letter to Mr. Lachey.
Okay, great. That is a part of the record, and that's perfectly fine. We will move forward. So, and if you decide you want to testify later, just raise your hand, and I'll allow that. We can get you sworn in. Okay, Mr. Weston, are you ready to proceed?
Sure.
Okay, floor is yours.
Yeah. Thanks for the time. And Matt, it's good to meet or see your face at least. We've spoken a lot over the last probably 9 months, 2 years. Yeah. We've navigated the zoning code, and for full disclosure, I'm not a architect or home builder, so it was a learning process for me. So thank you for your time and help through that. We just for a little bit of background, we initially, and all of this is obviously in our application, but just to kind of summarize it briefly, we initially engaged a builder to design a garage for us. At first, looked at the design and went to the code and realized that it was much too large, because we didn't know the code or know anything about it. So had to kind of start at the drawing board for that. Went to another builder, kind of more reasonably priced, we'll call it. And they kind of have standard sizes and such, and kind of landed on one that was very, very close to the zoning requirements. And picked this out. It turned out that the main kind of variable, I think, in our request relates to a patio that's added to the garage. So had there not been the patio, the way that the roof is measured, the height is measured, as well as the square footage measured, the square footage would be well within the required square footage. So that covered patio kind of puts it over the top. So our request is to consider the covered patio as kind of our options were to build the garage and then add on the covered patio, which would obviously be much more expensive, and prohibitive probably from doing that, at least immediately. Felt like it was much more efficient and for everyone to go ahead and get it done under this. So covered patio doesn't really change, inhibit any views or anything like that. You can obviously see through it, so we didn't feel like it was really affecting the nearby landscape. So taking that off, it gets us underneath the square footage of the actual structure. Then it also, because of the way the patio is built, it also kind of changes the roof line, which is kind of a technicality on how the height of the garage is measured. So adding that patio raises the highest gable, I guess, which causes it to be above the zoning limit of 15 feet. Even in full transparency, even with taking off that patio, we are still at 15 feet 9 inches. So our request really, is to exclude the patio from the measurements, just for efficiency and add-on purposes. And then from a height perspective, we would be asking for an additional 9 inches in the height versus the zoning code. So I know Mr. Lashide's note requested to get us under 15 feet. We'd be open to discussion on that, but our application was to go essentially 9 inches above the way we measure it for the height. So the request would be for that 9 inches as well as the size. So that's kind of the background. Obviously, the rest of it was kind of in the application. I don't want to speak too long necessarily, but glad to answer any questions as it relates to kind of our process, as well as why we chose this particular unit.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I just want to go through, and I'm going to share my screen here briefly for everyone, just to make sure I completely understand the request and the impact of the side
Sure.
covered patio area. So this is the proposal as it stands today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're saying that the sort of this portion, the covered patio portion here, that is everything underneath that is square footage that was added to the calculation of how much total square footage this structure has. Is that right?
Correct. I think the way the zoning code reads, it's all of the structure, so it doesn't matter whether it's inside or outside. So the inside portion is under the limit, and so our our options are to build it as is, or to build it and then try to come back and add it on later, which would be obviously cost prohibitive or inefficient. So the inside, the 2 garage doors and back is, I believe, 700 and something square feet. Adding on the side porch is what puts it over the structure limit. And then from a height perspective, just the way the code reads, it's the highest roof. So that would be kind of that middle one. That's there you go. It would be that middle one there on the left. Whereas the zoning code reads, because of that, that add-on porch, our proposal is you would use the one on the right, which would kind of be the height, should you not have that kind of additional gable.
Gotcha. So without the side covered portion here, you're saying that the height would be measured here.
Correct, which is
And what is that height there?
that's 15 feet 9 inches, as you can see in the circle right below where your arrow is.
Got it. Okay. And what is the height as designed?
That's 17.6.
Got it. Okay. All right. Um, let's see. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about the surrounding properties? Is this going to have a substantial impact on light, air, sun for neighboring properties?
I think the one that would be most impacted, although I don't think, obviously, I don't think the size really changes much of it, but the property to the east is obviously it's the way we have it. As you can see in one of the exhibits where we have it placed in the southeast corner of the lot, abutting the lot line. Obviously, we wanted to keep it as far away from the street as possible, so you won't really have much. It won't really affect the visibility from the street much. And then we've talked extensively with the neighbors to the east, which would be the most impacted. From like you said, from visibility, sun, all those kinds of things. And they've been super gracious. Basically, have said, hey, it's your property. You guys do what you want with it. As I tried to get even their opinion on where should we put it, and they were like, we have an opinion. Doesn't really matter what we think. You guys should do what you want. So that was kind of the answer I got from them, and which is great. We're looking forward to living next door to them.
Okay. Did you have any contact with any other adjacent neighbors? I think the other one would be to the south, right?
Yeah, we haven't met the ones on the south, just the ones on the east and the west. We've met.
Gotcha. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have right now. Is there anything else you want to tell me before I turn it over to Matt?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Matt, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, thanks, David. And thank you, Mr. Weston. Yeah, I mean, I think Mr. Weston summarized it pretty well. And, you had the plans up on the screen. I guess, would you mind pulling those up again? It's a pretty
sure.
In-depth review down to the matter of inches, so it's good to look at things together. The one with, yeah, that's good. So as Mr. Weston outlined, the project would be more compliant if not for that added lean-to porch on the side of it. The garage itself, where you could go inside of, is within the 800 square feet, but the patio area that's beneath that lean-to roof makes it more than 800 square feet. So the total square footage is 1,088 square feet. But again, I think it's important to note that extra 288 square feet is an outdoor patio area. And if you look on the site plan, it's in the interior of the property. It's facing their yard. It's not facing a neighboring property owner. So I don't think that patio space would have much of an impact on neighboring property owners if it were to be approved there, as opposed to a patio built off the back of the house or freestanding elsewhere on the lot. Height variance is in part due to the unusual shape of the roof. Zoning code measures to the midpoint of a peaked roof, or on a roof with multiple gables, often like dormer windows or a gambrel roof, we measure to the midpoint of the highest peak. This roof design is just unusual, and because of that, the way that we measure it is not advantageous for the applicant. So we measure to the one that's circled on the left side, 17 feet 6 inches, measured to the higher midpoint. If that lean-to addition were not there, the overall height would still be the same, but we would calculate the height as the midpoint of the one on the right, the straight side. So that'd be 15 feet 9 inches. So there's a hardship there to measure. Instead of measuring it at 17 feet 6 inches, you could argue that there's a hardship based on the unusual configuration of the structure, and that it really ought to be measured at 15 feet 9 inches. I can't even see it. 15 feet 9 inches.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So with that in mind, I think it's reasonable, as we go through this hearing process to say you ought to measure to the midpoint of that straight roof. The overall height would still be the same. The building's massing, does not feel significantly larger as a result. However, that measurement is still beyond what the zoning code would allow. And I mean, I know it's only 9 inches, but we have criteria that we have to meet. There's not been any hardship demonstrated to necessitate why it needs to be 9 inches taller than the code would allow. It's not a substantial property right enjoyed by others in the area that we've identified. It's not an accessory dwelling unit or anything. I think it's just extra space. So with that, there's not been a hardship or other criteria identified to justify why it needs to be 9 inches taller, but maybe Mr. Weston would like to add to that. And from looking at the plans, it appears to me that the entire building could be lowered 9 inches. The first floor to ceiling height on that drawing appears to be 9 feet 6 inches, which I hope I'm reading that right, but that seems plenty tall for a garage. I would imagine a garage, could be reduced 9 inches in height and would still be usable and then in line with the intent of the zoning code. So staff's recommendation is approval of the square footage variance based on the fact that it's an open air outdoor patio. It could be located, on the back of the building. It does not contribute to the mass of the building as much as if it were enclosed. It's just an unusual design. So we're recommending approval of that. And we're recommending approval of the height variance with the condition that the measurements on the right, the midpoint of the straight side of the roof, be limited to 15 feet in compliance with the standard requirement of the zoning code.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. And yeah, I don't think I have any other questions. All right. So go back to Mr. Weston. If you want to respond to anything he said, I mean, I'd like to hear a response. One, to the condition, or the sort of suggested condition here from the planning department that you lower the overall height by 9 inches, and then also maybe respond to why you believe this extra height is necessary, or there's some hardship that prevents you from coming down to 15 feet.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The main reason to request the 15.9 is really for the way that it's drawn, and for the garage doors to open the way that this fabricator kind of has it designed. And that's the requirement for the first floor height. So they would have to shrink the doors, I guess, to bring those walls down. It is a kind of Amish prefab building, so it's slightly limited in just the options. But so then the other option would be to change the angle of the second story of the roof on the second story, and which is probably what we would be more inclined to do to keep the to get under 15 feet. Really what that does is it restricts. So the second story really is just intended to be used for storage, potential, maybe like a play area for the kids, something like that. It's not going to be finished, at least not intended to be finished anytime soon. But it does have, the way it is designed now, and we actually had them draw this out for us to reduce it below 15 to see what would happen. The way that it is now, you've got about 8 feet of head clearance above 6 feet, 8 feet wide on that second story. I think it peaks at like 8 feet and then goes down to 6 feet pretty quickly. So you've got an 8 foot wide kind of gap, we'll call it, or galley, to be able to stand up. And if you're storing things or if kids are standing up there, when you reduce that to the next level below, which they actually brought it down to like 14.9 just because of architects that couldn't get to exactly 15, but it reduces that head height to 7 feet in the middle, and then the 6 foot is like 18 inches on either side. So then you've only got like a 3 foot wide gap, and I use 6 feet because I'm 6 foot tall, and I just am thinking about myself walking through there. So then you've got like a 3 foot wide gap at a 6 foot, has 6 foot head clearance. So it was really more of having that head clearance on the second level. Again, it's not, as of now, not an accessory dwelling unit. We would like to potentially consider that someday. But so having the head height is ideal. But again, if that is a sacrifice we need to make, we could do that as well. But that's kind of the main rationale of why we wanted to have a little bit more width for head clearance on that second story in case there was kids playing up there or ourselves going up there and banging our heads when we're trying to store stuff or whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thanks. That I think I wanted to ask the planning department one question related to your answer. Would the standards change at all, Matt, if he were proposing an accessory dwelling unit on the second floor?
Yeah. The accessory dwelling unit language that was adopted last year is intended to allow a full 2-story building. I think the maximum height is 25 feet. I will confirm.
That's correct, because the first design that was twice as expensive was going to be kind of under the accessory dwelling unit code. So I had looked that up back then, but we decided not to move forward that for cost, but wanted to kind of have that on the table potentially down the road if possible.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
maximum height 25 feet.
So would this be permitted by right if he were proposing it be an accessory dwelling unit?
We'd have to look at the area. I still believe the area would be too big, but the height would be allowed.
Okay.
I believe the challenge, at least my understanding of the ADU language, is that it requires to have a full kitchen and bathroom upon application. And so that was kind of our restriction. That was our original design had that, but just for cost, as we're doing other things with the house, decided not to move forward with that at this time.
Okay. But you're saying you may consider that in the future?
Yeah, we'd love to at some point. Ideally bring, plumbing in and potentially a bathroom upstairs if it was like a small guest suite or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, Matt. I was just curious how that would impact the application. All right. Anything else, Mr. Weston, in closing or otherwise before we adjourn here today?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to review all of the case materials here and the testimony and make a decision on this within the next 2 weeks. And as soon as I finish that, or as soon as I make that decision and I make a formal decision, I put it in writing. Then I'll put that into a PDF and I'll email it to everybody who's in the hearing here today. So you all have a copy of that really just moments after it's complete. That includes you as well, Ms. Keller. And we can you'll have a formal decision at that point. If it is approved, then at that point Matt can approve the zoning permitting on his end, and hopefully you can take the next steps. I think that's it. Any questions about the process or anything else that's happened?
Not from my end. Thank you. Appreciate the time and explanation.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank everyone again for their time and their testimony. Hope you all have a wonderful day.